Leaking diesel tanks. So 7 years ago, I installed this Vetus 25-liter tank, and it's been very durable in terms of the tank itself. It's thick polyethylene, and I've had no problems with the tank itself. However, when I first installed it, the hose barbs were made of plastic, and at least one of them had failed. So I replaced them with these brass hose barbs on a brass elbow. This is the return, this is the pickup, and this is the vent, which is still in okay shape, but going to do something about that also. But now the real problem is these grommets have worn out. So this one is kind of split. This one doesn't even stay in. So I get diesel coming out of the top of the tank, and I don't know if the video will pick it up, but there's a yellow stain here from that. So I think I've come up with a more permanent solution. And the solution that I've come up with is to use these brass bulkhead fittings. So you take the nut off. There's actually two rubber washers, and fish it in there so that the threads come up through the hole. I am going to have to open that up to a larger size. Also, I'm going to replace the brass elbows because this has a male. Probably could have just put an adapter on these. But I will be reusing some of the brass barbs on these. But even then, I'm going to have to get a larger barb for the vent. And to open that hole, normally I would use a tapered drill bit. But since that's not big enough, I'm going to use this cone-shaped grinding stone. Okay, got all three opened up nice and wide. And now, this piece of wire all the way through. There. Now I'll just put on the washer and the nut. And with the bulkhead fitting on, I can just screw on the elbow. And I'll get that nice and tight. But first I think I'm going to need to clean the tank out from all that plastic dust from drilling it out. Okay, so I've got the vent and the return installed. For the pickup, it's a little bit more complicated. There's the pickup tube, which has this kind of this wire in there with a spring at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it in there. I think the purpose of that is to probably keep it from imploding when there's suction on it, but also this little wire rod here. There's supposed to be pressure on that to probably keep this straight. So I had to kind of cut the tube down because of the extra length from the fitting, and then make sure that this is out far enough that it pushes up against the elbow here. Okay, and that is installed. So now ready for the elbows. So I've heard it said that you shouldn't use Teflon tape on fuel tank fittings because a piece could fall off and then go in your tank. But even if that were the case, it would be picked up by the filter. But regardless, I'm just going to use Teflon paste. Okay, ran into a small issue. So this little hole here is actually for the fuel pickup for the diesel heater. I removed the bulkhead fitting here, and I want to relocate this hole because it doesn't seal well, and it also kind of interferes with this. So after a little bit of thought, what I've done in the past with this is a polyethylene tank, and with polyethylene kayaks, I've filled holes with these little fusion beads that kids use to make designs. You kind of just heat them up with an iron or whatever, and they melt and fuse together. So I'm going to try to see if I can fill that with those. Okay, put a little piece of duct tape under there to hold the beads in, put in 2 yellows and 1 clear, and kind of just melted them with this soldering iron. Melted them into the tank. And now just smoothed it out with an iron. And it is welded shut, and that worked perfectly. Fast forward a bit, and I was able to get that new hole drilled for the diesel heater pickup. And I installed the pickup itself with a pair of bent nose pliers. Just kind of stuck them in the hole here and then held the nut underneath while I twisted this. And then installed these as I did before. So this is pretty much ready to go. I put the barbs on the pickup and the return. The vent needs a larger barb than I have, so I have to get one of those. They're actually back ordered, but I'll move ahead with installation for now. And now I've got the tank back in its spot here on the shelf in the lazarette. And it looks great. This little modification will probably outlast me, maybe even the boat. So all I needed to do here was to attach the filler tube, which is kind of hard to see in the dark, and strap it in and put all the hoses on. So here's the hose for the diesel heater. This is the pickup, the return, and the vent, of which I need to still get the 5/8 hose bar, but once I receive that, I'll screw it on and clamp on the hose. But other than that, it is finished, and very happy with the way this turned out.